Good evening, viewers, and welcome to another session of Mazungumzo. As usual, this is your host, Dr. Gilbert Githere, coming to your home with the topic of digital objects, indigenous people, and the World Wide Web, the Internet. In this program, we are giving our source of material is Yuk Hui or Hui Yuk. He has written a book on the existence of digital objects. Just as Martin Heidegger in the book Being and Time, he emphasized trying to see the entities which prove to us that beings are there. And they are important when you come to language or philosophy, the foundation of knowledge. That is according to Western philosophers. Philosophy is the foundation of all knowledge. And Rorty in 1979 challenged that idea of foundationalism. And he just said there is nothing really important about philosophy and it being a foundation of knowledge, because the thing which plays the most important part in our knowledge is actually language. Once you have language, you will have knowledge. And then you'll be able to discuss objects. And these things is all relations. One thing is related to the other. And that's why you find there is a lot of writing that has been done, which is important, logic or time. And you find that Immanuel Kant emphasizes that logic is very important when it comes to knowledge and human beings. But you find Martin Heidegger negated that premise and said that time, because without time there is no existence. So the relation of time and logic is there, but Martin Heidegger tended to think, because he dwelt on being and existence, that people are always striving to exist. And that's why they are actually on this earth. They have this struggle of existence. And existence cannot be there without time. Because, a human being is finite. He will die. He will cease to exist. And so, actually, time is the one which defines how old you get and when you kind of leave this world and go into the world of the spirits, for those who believe in life after death. Now, the subject we are dealing with here is that I'm trying to plead with people who finance the making of softwares that they must help the indigenous people with their languages so that they can have a peace, or they can come on the table and be able to enjoy with their languages the beauty of the internet. Because there is nothing which has opened the life of human beings to an extent that the sky is the limit, like the internet, the World Wide Web. So I've been pleading in this program that we should not forget the huge amounts of languages. Like in Kenya, there are about 60 languages. You're talking about French, English, German. There are languages in Kenya just exactly like that. And there are about 60 to 54 languages just in Kenya itself. So you can see the diversity of language. And wherever there is diversity of language, you must be sure that there is also diversity in knowledge and depth. Because languages store a lot of knowledge. And it is only through language that we can be able to extract that knowledge in the languages. So the more we give room to indigenous languages, the more important. But here, Yukhui is involved in a very deep kind of study because he's trying to find out, is there really the existence of digital objects? Like if you say, okay, the internet is run by algorithms. Are these objects with a being? Do they have an existence? And if they have an existence, because with the humans, us humans, there have been philosophers. Okay, we borrow from the Greeks, we borrow from indigenous languages, we borrow from the philosophers who came before us, thinkers and wise men from different cultures in China, in Japan, Confucianism, Taoism, African religions. There is a lot of knowledge in oral literatures of Africa. So when I say philosophers, and I quote Aristotle, Socrates, this known Western philosopher, don't forget, like in the writings of Lucius Outlaw, writings of somebody like Peter Appiah, Kwame Appiah, V.S. Mudibe, Odera, people like Okot Pipi Tek, the Congolese, many Congolese philosophers who I cannot name all of them, people like Mulefia Santa in his theory of Afrocentrism, and my niece who is coming up with presentism, Nema Githere, also is becoming quite an authority when it comes to presentism of African values in a subject relating to the internet. What I'm saying, all these philosophers, they have actually deciphered what actually is important for human beings to acquire knowledge. Descartes, we think so, we are. Idealism, ideas, they exist in our heads like a factory. You go in there, you will find ideas. It's like you've walked into a factory and you see ideas, performing and giving human beings wisdom and knowledge. And it's all fed from the world outside the world of spirits. Because people those days during Descartes' time were very religious. They would never discuss something about the knowledge of human beings without bringing spirituality into the whole discussion. And then we progress, we find somebody like Immanuel Kant. Immanuel Kant, the critique of pure reason, is trying to decipher, from metaphysics, transcendental, objectivity, how human beings, acquire knowledge, apprehension, and then things like the thinking, how human beings start acquire how to think, cognition, and then acquiring things like concepts from intuitions, notions, and then you go to understanding, experience. You can never have knowledge without you experiencing the objects. So we start having this deep discussion that for you to have knowledge, first of all, there has to be this aspect that you experience things. Transcendental imagination. Imagination is a very, very important entity of you being able to acquire knowledge. So you see, Immanuel Kant becomes the source of actually a very prominent person when it comes to knowledge. And he emphasizes logic, reasoning, and then to experience things. And that's how we human beings becoming knowing creatures with norms, ethics, consciousness. But now, as we continue, you see the, the philosophers have discussed human beings. And somebody like Martin Heidegger now differs from Immanuel Kant. He actually looked at philosophy and said, most of the philosophers have discussed things like logic, but they never really discuss the being of humans, the deism, the being. What when you say you are a being, a human being, what are the entities? What are the transient entities that make us human? And he looks at the subject of being and time, because being can only be understood because being, actually you can say being is a variable of time. Because without time, then there is no being. And there's no time without being. So you see, he did not look at logic, and he did not despise logic, though. We must be clear about that. The only thing he went into is that he really respected time and being, because you struggle through life, and it is all ticking now, and then now becomes then, and then actually becomes, it is also develop the past. Now has to be there for you to have a past. There has to be a start of the human life on this earth. So that was the now. And then is when you say, oh, there were people like Romans, the Vikings. There were people like the Ashantis, the Nyosa Kingdom, the Zulu, the Shaka Zulu. All these people are, that's the historicity of humans and ideas. Now, just to forward a little bit, because this is a long discussion, you can see I've been churning it. We get Yuk Hui. He's a young scholar on the existence of digital objects. Do digital objects really exist? Like, for example, algorithms that we really discuss. When you come to the world of hyper text transfer protocol, hypertext transfer protocol, HTTP, or hypertext markup transfer technology, HMTP, HMTP, HTMP, the DOS language. You'll excuse me, you can refer to that, Now, these are formulas to make the software that run the internet. What kind of being do these objects? Are they objects? Like mega tags, meta language. Are these objects? And if you say they are objects, what type of objects are they? Do they have being? Do they have like utility? Because human beings, when they go through life, there is the aspect of struggling for survival, and they have a family, and they have community, and they have nation, and they have states, they have governments, and they have institutions. All these are things which have become necessary for the life of a human being to be smooth and organized and lawful. ethical and normal. They are normal things you're expected to do as a human being. And when you do abnormal things, then people say you are getting off kilter when it comes to the ethics and behaviors and habits and rituals of human beings. You're kind of off kilter if you are not really like living virtually within a community. Now, the big question is objects, digital objects, because you see objects, if digital objects are going to be there, digital objects are there, then they're going to be experienced by human beings. Because when you experience and, associate yourself with the digital things, that's the only way knowledge is going to be achieved. So objects, digital objects, vis-a-vis man, have to kind of communicate and talk back to one another. Is that a aspect possible? And these are things really, if you look at life right now, you'll find that we are right in the center of that discussion. Misinformation that is going on is all possible because of the digital objects. Now, that's why people have to question. Okay, we have discussed how knowledge is attained or acquired by human beings. Philosophers like Oman van Quine, Putman, Hegel, Kwame Appiah, Lucius Outlaw. I quote Lucius Outlaw because I met him in Hawaii when there was a conference there in 1995 of all philosophers. And I think Jacques Derrida, Richard Rorty presented a paper about his book, The Philosophy and the Mirror of Nature. Charles Seale, the famous Charles Seale, David Davidson, truth is only necessary for belief. Truth is only necessary for beliefs. They used to kind of back and forth discuss heavily and have mental gymnastics with Richard Rorty, just trying to discuss philosophy and its correspondence with knowledge and being a foundation of all knowledge, which Rorty was against. He said only language is necessary. So we are involved in this mental gymnastics, trying to say, are there digital objects? Like when you have mega tags, when you're preparing a web page and you have your HTML or HTTP, you're using the DOS language and you're formulating how the software going to be. Are these objects? And if they are objects, then human beings have got to experience them. And when they experience them, then they're going to start acquiring knowledge about them. So they are objects. But this is a question that Yokhui is involved. And in order for you to answer that question, it becomes necessary to go back as far as the Greek society, because you will never escape your past. The Greeks, the wise men, the oral traditionalists that also discussed issues like virtue. Who is a good man in a village in the Yoruba community or in the Igbo community or in Nyotsa or in Kikuyu ni mundu uri kumwega, mtu gani mzuri mwenye utu. Yani watu waliketi wakajiuliza ni nani aliye na, ni mtu aliye na utu ndiye mtu mzuri. Somebody who is virtuous. Utu is virtue. And it is true. These things were discussed by thinkers in Africa. Also they are despised and not recorded, but I know for sure, like the Kikuyu people, if you read a book like Facing Mount Kenya, you will see they had a lot of thinking, discourse, to decipher things like who is a virtuous man? The one who actually obeys the law of his community, his institutions, respects them, and lives according to the conscientism of the community around. Because conscientism concerns being in unison, being in tempo with their traditions, your culture. If it's a wedding ceremony, if it's a burial ceremony, if it's harvesting time, it's planting time, it's time to worship. All these traditions, you follow them and you live harmoniously with the people around you. Then you start to be called virtuous. Now, just to relate what I'm saying to digital world, are digital objects and digital beings going to be able to observe those kind of norms? Are they going to live ethically with the people? You leave the robots working overnight. Are we going to reach a point where we say, okay, let's start respecting the rights of robots? And how are we going to define the rights of these robots? That they go to vacation or they want to be recognized as a group, not individually. They love transformative forms of organizations. They have vision and strategy whenever they are doing things. There's going to be a lot for us to decipher and to kind of think deeply. Because machines are already talking with human beings completely. Like you see, if you want a good chess player, the computer is going to challenge you in chess and it might win the game. But how much is software going to be respectful of the ways of life of the human beings as discussed by the classics, by different authorities in different cultures of what is normal in human life? Because I've been talking for so long, I kind of end up there, and I think we're gonna just continue, discussing, because that is exactly what will give us answers. There is no miracle. It's only to talk and to decipher things. Language is the only tool you require to acquire knowledge. Epistemology. It is the only thing which will allow ontology, the existence. It is the one which will help you to do phenomenology, hermeneutics. It is the one which will come and help you when you're getting to the level of historicity, horizons, bracketing, language, and it has rules. It's like a game. It has rules. It has rules. Michael Foucault, the archaeology of language. You find these things are there, and now we are trying to transfer all that we know about human beings, experience, knowledge, and language onto digital objects. That is what we are into. And it is all buried in things like meta language, markup language. That's where we're going to get the answers. Until we meet again, this is your host and friend. Hope you're keeping safe during the COVID. Try to relax a little bit. Try to read, do some mental gym stuff and physical exercise, wash your hands, have your mask, as and when you're with, in public. And then until we meet again, thank you for allowing me to come into your homes. And until we meet next time, this is your host, Dr. Gilbert Gishau saying ciao ciao.